Hello everyone, welcome back. So in this section, we will take a look at drawing ID curves. So basically that means adding different types of scales and integrating it well with the rest of the scales. So that is the idea. So now before starting that, let's take a look at built-in scale. So in the mode, default mode, if you switch to template scales, you can see there's a scale available here, which you you can control its shape from the tab. So when you switch to template scales, it gives you this tab. And here you can change the shape of your default built-in scale. So you can change, there are different controls. You can reshape it however you want it. Okay. So these sort of scales are available. Now you can adjust the shape, and then you have few options here like scale edge follow, and maybe adding more loops. So these are available. Now I will revert back to the default one. So defaults. And let's say this is the shape. Now, ideally, we would like to have extra scales. So you can model those outside from in your package of your choice. It could be Maya, it could be Houdini. So I have done a quick one here. So here is a different version here. Now, ideally, when you model these, they should be almost the same size of your built-in scale. So you can see I have roughly built a version of the scale, which is something like this, quite different, and another version. So I have in total like two different versions. Now, how we connect that in? So in here, you have a section called in black. This input is in custom scales. So in there, you can add that in. So for that, first you need to merge these two scales, one and two, and then add that in here. So in the tool, you can suddenly see it adds in all these versions. So you have the basic one and then the rest in order. So how you connect it, it will be in that order. So this will be always ID 0, this scale. This will be 1 and this will be 2. So keep that in mind. If you want to switch it around, you can always do that. Basically, switch around. See. Now also in the tool, sometimes you might not need the built-in scales. If that's the case, then you can always switch the built-in scale off. So by default, it's always on in the global controls. But if you don't need it, you can switch it off. And the first one, that is this one, in the merge node, first ID, in this case, this particular scale will take the first ID or ID number 0. So this will be 0, 1, 2. So keep that in mind when you want to add, if you decide not to have to go with the basic built-in base scale. All right, so now that we have done that, let's go back and start drawing some ID guides. So if you look in the mode, the third one, that is this pencil, it will help you in drawing guide ID curves. So if you click on that, it won't show up anything. You have to enter the tool, and now the you have our guide geometry. Now you can draw your guides. So, and one other thing is you can see there are two sliders here, ID radius and ID value. Now this will come in handy. So let's go in and change ID 0. You can always change it at any point in time. But let's say I want this one to be 1. Then you can draw your ID. Okay, you might not be able to see it, but you can see it's here. And let me go to ID 2. Let me add that in here. Okay, so there's ID 1 and ID 2. Maybe I will add ID here, ID 2 here, and maybe I will, and you can always, at any time, you can change it. So this is the mirror side. It doesn't work on the mirror side, but on the drawing side, you can, similar to what we had with um, draw direction, you can right click and you can delete it or set ID. So when you set ID, it will take the value of this slider in here. So right now it's 2. So if you want to change this ID of this one to 2, you can set ID from here. And let's say if you want the radius, right now it's all 0. And if you want the radius means scales will be affected. So let me put that to 0.2. So set radius, similar, it will take values from here. Now I don't want this to be 2. I will revert back to 1 and change it to set ID. So that's 1. Maybe I will have 1 here, here, 1. Okay. Maybe in here. Okay, cool. So I have few IDs here. Now let us let us test it out. So I can go back to default mode, go back to scales low, and now you can see the tiles or the IDs and the radius. This is where the radius get affected, as you can see here. Now point interval, it helps in um, blending it with or having a random scatter into this ID, which helps for realism. Okay. What else? ID spread. So you can play around with these values to see how it affects. ID blend. And again, to mirror it onto the other side, you can do a mirror in curve so that will mirror it onto the other side. Let me switch back to scale slow again. Okay, so this display is displaying much better. I had a small fix for the normals, but anyways, you can see how the scales are scattered. So you can adjust the point intervals to control and spread. And now we will try a generate mesh of this and see how it looks. And we can always change it. So let's say if you want this to swap the places, you can always change it here. So yeah, you can do that as well. And let me try it out. Built-in scale. Yeah, we can have as many number of ID scales, different types of scales as much as you want. So let me generate Hamish, and then we'll take a look at how it looks. Let me go for 04, generate mesh. So here is the generated mesh. So as you can see, there are different types of scales in this, and also have the old scales. So maybe I'll try a version without our base built-in scale. So I'll just generate that real quick, and I'll show you the difference. So maybe I'll use a different version so that we can compare it. Oh, this is an old version that I did, and you can see these are a bit more well-defined scales. So it's a balance of getting the right look for your scale, having this sort of center line, all that will give you really good looking scales. Anyway, I will just generate this on our current asset. Let me go and switch off within Rbscale, generate mesh. So here is the version generated with the base scales and the additional extra scales that we added in the custom scales. So this is how it looks. Now, a couple of things to note here is the offset. So by default, the offset of scales from the surface is set for base offset is set to be 0.01. To show this clearly, if you switch to scale slow version and maybe add a bit of angular occlusion, clearly see this. So by default, the value is set to, I believe it's 0.02, and sometimes it's a bit too much. Uh, and it creates a sort of height difference between the hero scales, the painted scales, and the base scales. So ideally, there's another offset here, hero offset, which you can trigger once you have generated your higher mesh. So once you have the higher mesh here, then scales, you can additionally use this to change the height difference. So by default, it's 0.01, maybe you can switch to 0.02. And you see, it updates and you can see reduce the height difference in that fashion. So right now it's a bit too much. Maybe I'll go down to 1.5. Something. That should be fine now. So in their way, they will look continuous. They will have a proper flow of scale. And these are the additional scales. Uh, you need to redraw lines properly to get a bit more random feel to these scales. Right now they are very isolated, so we need to add more of those lines, smaller lines and bigger lines, ID lines to get a good feel for that. So this is how it looks right now. And you can also adjust bend of these scales. So there is a bend multiplier, which is the straightforward way of bending it, or you have the curve that you can control how from where it should bend. So right now I'm just keeping it second and and it's easy to see this in the scales low, where you can interactively adjust those. So in here bend multiplier, you can bend multiplier and bend it. And you can control from where it bends. You can put more points. So you can get quite good control over these. And again, the scale size. So it's set to 1.8. You can go up. You can try different values and see what works best. So these controls, some of these controls are only available for the built-in scale, that is these round ones, these yellowish ones, and the rest of these are custom geometry, which we don't have the bulge or bend controls. We also have bulge control here, which affects every scales. So if I get to 10 scales and use that bulge multiplier, and we so it bulges out from the center. Maybe I'll try something bigger. slight bulge. It's not very visible with on the base scales, but it's still bulging. Maybe, uh, and you have a bulge smooth, which smooth out the bulge effect. Uh, it's too much, but it's fine. Yeah, you can clearly see how it comes out, which is helpful. Now I will go back. I don't mind. Let's go back to point two. Don't want too much bulge. Side bulge is for bulging out of the sides. So by default, it's 0.03. It's a very low value. Maybe you can go try bulge out the sides. It's handy.